Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Now, today's first story is titled, My Dad's 43 Girlfriend is Trying to Get Rid of Me, 15 Female. My mum passed away 5 years ago. I think of her every day. My dad went through a really bad depression and I had to take care of myself basically. During the Christmas holidays, my dad told me that he'd been seeing someone for a while. I noticed that he was happier and I guess I was happy for him. I didn't want him to be lonely forever, but I did feel like my mum was being erased completely. He never wanted to talk about her and he got rid of all pictures with her in them. He said that his girlfriend would be spending Christmas with us and then moving in. I wasn't happy at all. I don't even know her, but I didn't say anything. I met her on Christmas and usually my dad and I put the star on the tree that day. We would put the star on the tree and watch The Grinch. It's our tradition and we kept it even when we were grieving my mum. It's the only tradition from when she was with us that we actually kept. When his girlfriend came over, he put the star on with her while I was in the bathroom. And we didn't watch The Grinch because she hates it. I know I sound spoiled and childish, but I was so angry. We've been doing this my whole life and she just came in and destroyed it. The whole night she didn't even bother getting to know me at all. She was all over my dad and pretty much ignored me. I told my dad about how upset I was about our tradition and he said I should grow up and that things change. I didn't like her because she gave me a bad feeling, so I never got close to her. She complained to my dad about it and he got mad at me for not making her feel welcomed. I felt bad because she makes my dad really happy, so I tried being more friendly with her. In front of my dad, she was nice to me, but when we were alone, she ignored me or spoke to me with attitude. She even told me that I was a brat and I make my dad's life harder. I told him, but he didn't believe me and yelled at me for trying to sabotage his relationship. He said that I wanted him to die alone and be sad and that I was selfish. I was so shocked because none of it is true. My dad basically treated me like I wasn't there at all after that. I felt like I did when my mum died, all alone. I stayed up really late one night because I just couldn't sleep and wanted to sneak in a midnight snack. The girlfriend was in the kitchen on FaceTime, so I decided to be nosy and listen. She was talking about my dad and how much she loves him. Then she said that he had this dumb daughter and she wondered if it was too late for adoption. Her and her friend laughed at that. She said I was a little bitch and she hated me. Her friend then said something about boarding school or military school, but I left, so I didn't hear the rest. I was so exhausted from all the crying I did, so I actually slept. I didn't tell my dad and I don't even know if I should, since he probably won't believe me. I really miss my mum. I kind of want to go live with my grandparents, mum's parents now, but I don't want my dad to think that I'm leaving him. What do I do? Can I even do anything? How do I get my dad to listen to me? Would I be in the wrong for leaving? As always, I'm really sorry about your mum passing. That must be incredibly hard at your age to lose someone like that. It was hard enough at my age to lose someone like that, so I can't imagine how you're feeling, especially dealing with this on top of it as well, feeling alone like you are. And the tradition absolutely broke my heart. That's something that you guys have been doing together and he didn't think about that at all. All he's thinking about is his needs and telling you to grow up on the back of that. And I think I'd certainly want to be telling the dad about the situation, but the problem is the evidence in this because, you know, she sounds like she could be a manipulative person and turn things around on you if you was to bring it up. But at the same time, the way that he's treated you as well, I wouldn't blame you for wanting to go to your grandma's at all. In some ways, it sounds like it'd be a more comfortable place for you at the moment because who wants to be around this kind of shit, right? But as I said, I can't imagine the way you are truly feeling right now. But enough drawing says go to your grandparents. You can't leave someone who has already left. And emotionally, that is what he's done. Once you are safely away at your grandparents, if he complains, wants an explanation or anything at all, just send him a link to this post. It's hard to argue with the written word. If he tells you it's untrue or tries to argue your accounting, tell him you won't talk to him if he's just going to undermine your feelings or insinuate that you're a liar and that you will not be accused of trying to ruin his happiness. That was an extremely cruel thing for him to say, and you do not deserve his cruelty. So go be happy, Dad. No one's trying to stop you. Then focus on you, kiddo. Get settled with the grandparents. Reminisce about your mum. Take the time you need to heal. Ask your grandparents if you can have counseling. You might not feel you need it, but sometimes it's just nice to talk to someone who understands but isn't emotionally biased one way or the other. They can help you work through your own feelings and give you tools to deal with things like conflict and guilt. Give your dad time to chew over what you told him. I wish I could tell you everything will work out fine, but there's no guarantees in life. All the more reason you must take care of yourself and do what's in your best interests. And staying with Dad is not likely in your best interests. He's putting his relationship ahead of you, so you need to put yourself ahead of his choices. So sorry, kiddo, you've had a hard go of it. Be gentle with yourself. None of what is happening is on you, regardless of what your dad or a sneaky-ass girlfriend want to imply. And what an absolutely spot-on comment. Crunchy Hype says, I'm sorry this is happening to you. Unfortunately, your dad has blinders on right now, and anything you say will either fall on deaf ears or his girlfriend will spin it so she's the victim. Your dad is making all the wrong moves with introducing a new girlfriend to you aside of picking a bad girlfriend in the first place. This relationship will have to take its course for a while. Don't feel bad about reaching out to your grandparents and seeing if you can live with them. Your dad is making selfish choices recently, and you're the only one you can rely on to look out for you right now. Let his girlfriend have him. She'll show her true colors soon enough once they live together day to day. Once she doesn't have you to be ugly to, she'll take it out on him. Major Nut says you should live with your grandparents. Sadly, in part because of his grief, has latched onto someone and in doing this has forgotten his responsibilities to you. So yes, he has picked her over you. Few things you can do is record how she behaves around you just to show him that you aren't out to break them up. I would talk to your grandparents and find out if they're willing to take you, then bring this up to your dad. You sadly may be stuck there for a few years more. I do suggest to avoid her. The less contact the better. Do not compete with her for your dad's affections. You will lose sadly. Don't try to stick it to her in any way. She can make your life worse, and in the end, your dad favors her. You are in a bad spot, and one I feel really bad about. Your father, even in his grief and loneliness, should have put you first until you were 18, minimum. And one more from Natty who says, my heart is broken for you. And it kind of feels like she wins if you go stay with your grandparents, but on the other hand, she might ratchet up her abusive behavior, and your dad has established that he won't say anything. Record if you can all your alone interactions with a girlfriend. Go stay with your grandparents, discuss with them how you feel. Play them, not your dad, the recordings. Let them handle it. And again, I can't help but think about how sad and lonely OP must feel in this situation. Just think about them sitting there after their mum had passed away, the grief that they were going through. I know father's going through grief as well, and that's probably a part of what's going on. Not excusing the behavior, obviously, but could be a part of it. It obviously doesn't excuse what he's doing to his daughter right now. But her being in this house with a girlfriend who she knows can manipulate and turn things around on her and is absolutely shitty to her, and a dad who's just cast her aside and not taken any of her feelings or thoughts into consideration at all, and just making her feel even more isolated by herself in this house. And we often think of these stories as like a large block of time, but think this is OP's thoughts from daily, hourly, and by the minute as well. And that thought process is going on constantly. It just breaks my heart for her, honestly. Then OP comes in with an update 12 or 13 days later saying, hi, since my last post I spoke to my grandparents and told them everything. I asked if I could stay with them if I wanted to, and they agreed. I then spoke to my dad again and tried to tell him how I felt and what I had heard. I didn't want to film or record because I knew he would be mad at that and wouldn't listen. He didn't believe me again and thought I was jealous of having to share him with someone else. I got upset and told him that I was leaving so he could live happily ever after without the burden of having me around. He looked shocked but didn't say anything. I had already packed my bags and brought some things to my grandparents' house already. My dad didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. My grandfather picked me up and I've been there since. I haven't gone home and I haven't heard from my dad. My grandparents told me that they would handle my dad and that I shouldn't have to be the one doing it. I'm upset that my dad hasn't called or texted me once to see if I'm okay. At the same time, I'm feeling so much better being with my grandparents. My grandmother is probably the sweetest person ever, and my grandfather is a little rough around the edges, but he's really a softie. And then OP's final update comes 7 days after that one, which says my dad came to visit me at my grandparents' place to talk to me. He brought his girlfriend with him. He said, "Girlfriend and I have been talking and we decided that it's best that you stay here." My dad said that I can come clean out my room completely and he'll help. He also said that after I get my things, we should also take a break from each other and reevaluate things in a few months or however long it takes. His girlfriend then said something about how she had taken care of my dad for me. In a few days, I'll be going over with my grandparents to get my stuff, but also be getting the important papers that some of you have mentioned. It doesn't look like I'll be going back home anytime soon. I have a new home now, I guess. To be honest, I've been feeling pretty bad about some of the comments, specifically the ones saying that since I probably remind him of my mum, that's why he's like that with me. He got rid of everything of my mum's and I was the last piece of my mum, so it makes sense he doesn't want me anymore. I really wish she was still here. I think he wants to start over, and I wasn't a part of that plan, so I guess that's it. Thank you for all of the kind comments. Imagine telling your child that you need to take a break from them and reevaluate things in a few months. Oh, such a sad story. I'd love to know how OP is getting on right now. I really hope that their life has got better with their grandparents. Their grandparents sound like sweet people. And hopefully we'll lift OP up and give them the love and time that OP deserves and help them deal with what they're going through with their grief and dealing with their arsehole dad and that girlfriend as well. Don't get me started on that one. Now, what do you guys make of this story? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below and let's move on to another one. And this next story comes from statistician own 3954, who says, "Am I the arsehole for accidentally shading my sister-in-law's wedding choices after I stated my wedding rules? I'm getting married in 3 months and I've sent out the invitations. In the invites and emails I've sent to my guests, I've only requested of people to avoid wearing white, for obvious reasons, and emerald green, bridesmaid's dress color. I've also asked people to RSVP until a certain date, or else I won't include them in the reception dinner since price per person is very expensive, so I don't want to pay for people who won't show up at all. Basically those 2 rules, nothing else. Kids are invited, families are invited, and I couldn't care less about what my guests choose to wear except those 2 colors I mentioned above. For context about my sister-in-law, she's my fiance's sister. We have an okay relationship, not extremely friendly, but we don't hate each other either, and we get along. During my fiance's birthday celebration, some friends and I were chatting about the wedding, and they were telling me about how they were surprised how chill I am about the wedding rules and how it's refreshing to go to a wedding where they won't feel like they're walking on eggshells. I said that this is not me at all, and I just want my guests to have fun as well, so I don't want to put many limitations. The girlfriend of one of my fiance's friends also showed me the dress she's thinking of wearing to our wedding and wanted my approval on whether it's acceptable, or I believe she'd overshadow me. It's a yellow dress that's on the sexy and revealing side, but I honestly loved it and I told her to indeed go ahead and wear it. I told her I'm the bride. It's not easy to overshadow the bride, and if someone does, well, sucks for me, but it's not really that deep. I didn't say it in order to shade my sister-in-law, but she took offense to everything I said and called me a pretentious arsehole. The reason she took offense is because she had multiple rules on her wedding, child-free, strict dress code and all that. We abided by those rules back then because her wedding, her rules of course. I never intended to offend her. I was just stating my own rules and mindset behind all my organization. She called me out and said I enjoyed subtly shading her. She called me a snake and told me that if I have something to say, I should say it to her face. She and her husband left the party. My mother-in-law told me that sister-in-law overreacted indeed, but I'm also at fault because I flaunted how chill and different I am and rubbed it in her face to make her feel bad about her own wedding. My fiance said I did nothing wrong and sister-in-law will grow up and get over it. Could I be the arsehole? Now, I come out straight away and I feel this like a not the arsehole to me. Absolutely, she reacted to your rules at your wedding. It doesn't sound like you intentionally went out your way to say, haha, our wedding's a lot more relaxed than your wedding was. He was just literally talking about what's going to happen at your wedding. She tried making it about herself and it's probably insecure. There was probably people talking about her wedding previously and how I don't know, strict it was, etc. And she didn't like it and now gets offended when anyone else talks about their wedding and their rules because of her own insecurities. So it's a not the arsehole from my perspective. But ATC0 says, not the arsehole. Your sister-in-law called you a snake when all you were doing was saying a bunch of rules for your guests isn't your style. Sounds like narcissistic behavior to me. Cyrene says, so your formerly bridezilla sister-in-law is butthurt because you are confident enough to believe that you won't be outshined on your wedding day, when some of her own wedding rules may have been crafted to prevent that exact scenario. Your day, your way. Let her talk shady to her television whilst binge-watching Say Yes to the Dress if she so badly needs to feel smug and validated about her own choices. Not the arsehole, and hope you have an amazing wedding day. Birdhouse in Your Soul says, not the arsehole, her party is in the past. I'm sure you are wholly focused on your own event. She took it thick because she knew her rules were not appreciated by some. She was entitled to them, but now she can't realize that not everything relates to her. She has a touch of narcissism, so be careful. Enjoy your wedding and congratulations. And one more from Maleficent Fennel who says, not the arsehole, for fuck's sake. You're allowed to have your own approach. You're allowed to be honest about your plans. If she takes offense, that's 100% on the self-involved, narcissistic, crazy person. She's welcome to take offense. It's not what you intended. She's managing to make your choices and your wedding about her. Your fiancé needs to talk to his mother about the nuance in these emotional boundaries. It's not fair her putting even 1 ounce of this on you. My only caveat is that this is based on you doing no flaunting, i.e. people who have strict rules are so XYZ. If you just stated what you wanted and were sensitively aware of the contrast with your sister-in-law's wedding, then not the arsehole. Now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from a throwaway account titled, Am I the Arsehole for telling my husband to get over himself when he started berating me for not picking up his brother's son from school? My husband, 37, took his nephew, 12, in after his dad, my husband's brother, was diagnosed with cancer. He told me that his nephew would be staying with us till his dad completes his chemo treatment. I agreed, although he did not consult me about it first. But I told him that he'd be his responsibility, not mine. He asked me to explain why, and I told him it's because 1, he didn't consult me before taking his nephew in, and 2, I'm not equipped nor experienced in taking care / being committed to childcare. I still have to cook and clean, obviously. He said it was fine and that he'd be taking care of him on his own. The other day, he called me in the afternoon, saying he was stuck in a 2-hour meeting and asked if I could go pick up his nephew from school. I said I was having lunch with mum and discussing family issues. He insisted, but I reminded him that he said he'd be taking care of his nephew, including school pickup and drop-off. I suggested he try to get off work or call some family members to go pick him up. He tried to argue, but I hung up. I went home at 3 and surprisingly found my husband there. He was angry and he started yelling at me, calling me selfish and unfeeling. I told him that his lack of management wasn't my fault. He yelled saying that my lunch with mum could have fucking waited, but I chose to be fucking petty, just to prove a point. I said that wasn't true and told him to get over himself and stop acting like he was the victim when he put himself in the situation knowing he wouldn't commit. He yelled that he was trying to do all he can to help his brother out, but it was me who's playing the victim after I refused to help out. We argued some more and I ended up going to stay with my mum for the night. He texted me some choice words, that's when I turned my phone off. We're still arguing about it. I'm going to start off with JR, who says, you're the arsehole. I suggested he call some family member to go pick him up, and goes on to say that's exactly what he did. His wife, who should be a partner in the relationship. You are displaying zero empathy to a family suffering through the effects of cancer. Your husband may lose his brother, and your nephew, his dad. But you'd rather score petty points because you weren't consulted about helping family go through chemotherapy. You'd better hope you never get cancer because I'm not sure you'll have a support system. What can she say and says you're the arsehole, cold, heartless, petty. Also weird that you're married yet you choose to call this child your husband's nephew, and never once do you say, our nephew, even though you are his aunt by marriage. Personal Fuel says, wow, this is the most cold-hearted shit I've ever read. Strong you're the arsehole here. That's your husband and your nephew. They're your family. You speak about your nephew like he's a dog and not a human child. The child whose dad has cancer, needing collecting from school far outweighs your need for lunch date with your mum, as does your husband's need to be at work. Could you and your mum not have collected him together and taken him for a bite to eat afterwards? Even if it's not something you wish to do on a regular basis, why won't you help your husband out on just one occasion? You're supposed to be a team, and this is one of the most selfish things I've ever read. Fair play to your husband for putting up with this. He's a better person than I. And then a comment from the other side from Rake Satchel who says, I'm sorry, but what are these comments? He took in a child without asking and expects her to play mum. In marriage, you discuss shit. If you make unilateral decisions, you do solo work. Period. I bet he does a lot of things like this thinking he's the boss because he's the man. If you're a housewife with no kids, it's time to move on. Get a job and get on your feet ASAP. Not the arsehole. Life is boring, says not the arsehole. You set clear boundaries and he agreed to them. He simply thought that being around the kid would make you want to take on more of an active role. He could have explained to his employers ahead of time the situation he is in so things wouldn't happen at last minute. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And as always, a huge thank you for spending your time with me today. Listen to a story or two, getting involved in the comments, being kind to one another, just all that good stuff is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for being awesome, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today'll be a good day. Okay, I know that today'll be a good day.